And this next session is all about leadership. It's not just the glossy kind of leadership that you found in sound bites and on all these numerous decks that we all have to do. We're talking about leadership through uncertainty, through backlash that we've heard a lot about, and Jude spoke about that, through change. We're talking about bold, principled, human leadership. The kind our industry and our world needs more of than ever before. And that's something we absolutely have heard about this morning. Julia Simpson is President and CEO of the World Travel and Tourism Council. Julia brings a wealth of experience from 14 years in aviation, serving both on the board of BA in Iberia and as Chief of Staff at IAG, International Airline Group. Before that, she was a senior advisor to the UK Prime Minister and held several key roles in government and the public sector. A firm believer in the power of travel to transform lives, drive economic growth, and protect people and the planet, Julia brings both passion and purpose to her leadership. I've heard her speak before, and she absolutely does that. So please join me in welcoming the incredible Julia Simpson to the stage for her address on leadership. Sorry, can I just, sorry.
Jo, thanks very much for that absolutely amazing introduction. And just before I begin, I'd like to thank Alessandra and the whole team for bringing this together, and thank all of you, women and allies, everybody here in this room today for coming. I just wanted to say, when I saw the address, I was really kind of shocked, because this building is on the old site of the Ministry of Defence. And my mother worked as a lowly civil servant, and she was a part of the team that created the Harrier jump jet. But her story was quite amazing. She, and I was her only child. She had a lot of difficulty having children. Sadly, she got me, but there you go. And her story was that she was the eldest of 7 in a very poor family in London. Her father was killed in the First World War, and then her mum married again. And the stepdad was particularly cruel. He took her out of school at age 13, and he made her go and work in a glue factory. And glue factories, what they used to have were bits of horses there, and that's how they made the glue. So she felt kind of humiliated. She was frightened, physically frightened at home. But one thing she did is she didn't pass that fear on to me. She passed the courage on to me. And she ensured that with the limited means we had, I got the very, very best education in the world. So I wanted to say that to credit my mum, because that's where we are here today. So thank you for allowing me to do that for a moment. And that's why I'm so passionate about championing diversity and inclusion in now my new role at the World Travel and Tourism Council in the world of travel and tourism. And WTTC, as we call, you have to get your teeth in for the WTTC word. The WTTC, we really advocate for this. We write reports. We set the agenda ahead of the curve. And it's really important because it means that our community, our industry that represents 10% of all global business on the world, whether they're really like intrepid, way ahead of the game, or maybe some of our members are a little bit behind the game, we can act as a rallying centre for them to join us. So I want also just to say, I wanted to commend you on the 3rd IWTTF awards. I see TT is obviously the thing. And to all the winners, and congratulations. Are there any winners in the audience? Any winners? Hey, well done. That's fantastic. You've got a bit of a hangover, I hope so. Well done. So on Wednesday morning in the spring, and it was 1842, and a 45-year-old woman from Vienna, Ida Pfeiffer, hopped on a steamboat, and she was travelling down the Danube, very elegant with her corsets on. And she told her family that she was going to Constantinople, which, as we now know, is Istanbul. But it wasn't actually quite the full story. In the 1840s, it really was not the done thing for women to travel. It was deeply frowned upon. And you certainly never travelled alone without your husband. Well, that day, Ida told a little porky pie, and after visiting Constantinople, which was shocking enough, she kept going. She travelled to Lebanon, Egypt, Jerusalem, without telling anyone. She crossed the desert by camel, reaching the Red Sea. she climbed the Great Pyramid of Giza. Is it Giza or Giza? Giza in her corset, and went home via Italy, seeing Naples, Rome and Florence. And when she got back, she wrote a book about that experience. In the introduction, her publisher, a man, noted how shocking he found it that such a delicate lady should make such a trek. Thankfully, we have come a long way since then. And a forum like this with awards specifically for women in tourism would have been unthinkable to Ida. Today, women in most countries can vote, go to university, run for parliament and crucially explore the world. In our time, around 64% of travellers are now women. So with the more travellers travelling than men are women. A clear majority, almost 2/3, are our customers. And often solo travellers like Ida, and more than 82% are the ones making travel decisions in the family. How many people here in the room make the travel decisions? Yeah. Yeah, well done. You've got an ally. Fantastic. So it's a bit of, not really a very fair thing. You've got a room for a woman. But anyway, you take my point. Women often are the ones that do make the decisions. And those decisions about how, when, where, how much to spend are all decided, and often by mums as well. I was at, some of you may know Virtuoso, it's sort of a group of, yeah, you know Virtuoso. And I was at one of their events recently, and Matthew Upchurch said, he put a little test out, he said, who is the most valuable traveller in the luxury segment today? It's actually the solo 65-year-old woman travelling alone, which is incredible. So you might think with all those statistics that we would naturally be leaders in our sector. The world's travel providers would have us in mind, but women are still not a majority in boardrooms. If you look, I know the UK numbers have got better in boardrooms, but certainly the executive committees below them are still really lagging. And if I look at the leaders of the travel companies, I represent 200 of the top CEOs. We have some exceptional women leaders, and I could name them. You know, got Jane Sun from Trip.com in China. You've got Yvonne Makolo, who heads up Rwanda Air. But actually, there are some very, very important women leaders. But actually, the majority of our boardrooms in travel and tourism companies are still run by men. So if we look at where do women fit into the whole job economy of travel and tourism? Well, we represent about 40% of all the workers in travel and tourism. If you look at hospitality, it's more like 50 to 60%. But if you take the whole family, and that's the hotels, the cruise, the airlines, the airports, the OTAs, the whole lot, then we are about 40% of travel and tourism jobs. And on average, these jobs are lower paid and less secure than the men's jobs in our same sector. And at senior levels, as I said, the number is still much smaller than some of the more enlightened companies in the world. So in recent years, we have seen global moves to change this. More companies are making deliberate efforts to support families with good parental leave policies, enabling more men also critically to take time off for the family. More attention is being paid to those with chronic illnesses and with disabilities, and with women's issues around menopause and periods and fertility, which I always say, a woman's life, when they talk to me about, I've had a baby and, you know, it's cesarean, say, well, I've got bad periods, I always say, I'm so delighted that I don't have any hormones anymore, I can tell you. I used to call them the moaning whores, honestly, because literally, at some time during your life, whether you have difficult periods, whether you have a difficult menopause, you have a difficult birth, whether you can't get pregnant, there are very few women that sail through that whole thing. You know, some of us at some stage have some problems along that road, and that's something that men don't have to face. I'm happy they don't, and but it means that employers need to support and understand those things, and they shouldn't be hidden. So we're going to say menopause on the stage. Get over it, right? I'm past that anyway. So we talk much more about inclusion and allyship, which is true, and how to support those who've been historically underrepresented. What's magical about our sector, though, is we do lift women out of poverty in countries where women, in poor countries where women form a backbone of an informal economy. We actually lift them out of the informal economy and we put them into more formal jobs where they pay taxes and they get some protection and some rights. And our sector is one of the very few that does that. Because, and it also means that you can be talented and really push, and you can go from cleaning rooms all the way up to being CEOs. Now, I know some men that have done that. The CEO of MSC Cruises, he actually started as, what do you call waiters on boats? They've got a word, haven't they? Pardon? Wobbly, very good. There's always one. There's always one. Anyway, steward. He started as a steward on a boat, and he's now the CEO. And Chris Nassetta, CEO of Hilton, he actually started cleaning toilets in the hotels. So it is very, it is, and I'm sure there are female examples. Some of you must find them and send them to me. But it is a very unusual sector that you can start at the bottom and get all the way up to the top. But despite all this, too many of us still face barriers to travel and tourism. And now we're living through what has been called a DEI backlash. And it's become unfashionable to champion women or inclusion or free movement or climate action or anything seen as too progressive. We've seen Ford, Amazon and Walmart scrapping their DEI schemes, usually meaning less money for training and mentoring. Most recently, Barclays here in the UK has just ditched its gender targets for its workforce. Slowly, the political climate of the US is spreading to Europe and to other parts of the world. What are we, women and allies, to make of all this? Well, I also know there's a flip side to that coin, and many of you will have seen it as well. There are many, many companies in the US and elsewhere whose resolve and belief has hardened because of this. And they want to continue supporting women and DEI. And I can tell you, the young women I work with in my office wouldn't put up with it either. So young women are not going to allow this to happen, where they still have voices and where they still have legal protections. So I think our history has been beset by setbacks, and we still move forward. We know the time it takes to go from backlash to mainstream. It can sometimes span generations. And that's why I mentioned my mother, because we have to, it's not just about us here today, it is about our grandchildren. We may not get everything. Look at Afghanistan now, look at the women in Iran now. These are people we have to continue fighting for, and we might not see the changes in our generation. This is a long game, and women are good at long games because we have to be. But the suffrage movement in the UK took about 80 years. It started about that same time as Ida set off for Constantinople on her first solo excursion. And in the 1840s, before a period of real retaliation, when the suffragists were arrested, ridiculed, force-fed, vilified in the media, until finally there was a course correction and votes for women slowly became the mainstream in the 1920s. So what I'm saying is we are used to fighting, and we're just going to have to, it doesn't come and it stays. We have to continue defending and promoting this. But I hope what we are witnessing today is just, as I said, that testing of boundaries. One phrase I'm always a bit nervous about, and that is meritocracy. People say, no, I'm very, very in favour of women, you know, they can do it, but it has to be a meritocracy. But you can't have a meritocracy if you don't have a level playing field to begin with. You can't appoint on merit if the girls have not had access to the same education, or because they're having terrible periods, they've missed some of their schooling. You can't do it if women are filtered out of shortlists, which has happened to me. When I was at IAG, I was recruiting a big head of finance. And I'd gone out to headhunters, because among my many roles, I was also the head of HR. And a long list came along. And on the long list, there was not one woman on that long list. So I said to them, I said to the company, I said, listen, give me a long list that's got 50-50 women. And so they went away. They found it really hard, which I was surprised at because financial services has a lot of women in it. And they came back with the 50-50 list. And I was so furious with them. In fact, we did appoint a woman. But I decided, come on, Simpson, let's find out what's behind this. So I took the headhunter out to lunch. I thought, I think I made him pay, but whatever. And very nice it was, I remember. And I said, what's going on here? And they said, well, there are two things. And in a way, all they were doing was responding to a commercial market force. They said, first of all, that role that you were appointing was going to need the approval of the chairman. It was a chairman. And nearly always we find that chairmen actually want men. So sometimes we work really hard with a female, a woman candidate, and then they get booted out. Okay. They said, and also there are many women working who are talented in the financial services, but they don't always put themselves forward for promotion. A man tends to think a lot more about their career, and if they had a pie chart of their time, you've got that bit for golf, and then you've got, anyway, I'm no joke. You're lovely, honestly. But, you know, a part of their personal working pie chart is actually making sure they're networking, looking at their next career. Good for them. And women, we are not generally as good at doing that. So I had to hear that because he was finding it hard to get the women. And then when he got them on the list, sometimes they were getting booted off the list by the time it got to the last round of interviews. So it's really, you know, understanding things below the world. So regardless of the political landscape, the simple fact remains inclusive organisations we know perform better. Inclusive countries perform better. Some of you will have been at the WTTC summit in Rwanda, and President Kagame has made a point of all his senior leaders are women. That's why we've got Yvonne Makola, who's the first black woman who's the CEO of an airline. You got her sister as well, who's one of the biggest political thinkers in the whole continent of Africa. So it does take that leadership from the top. But what happens in Rwanda, their country performs better for having a majority of, they're one of the few countries that has a majority of women in their parliament. And countries and companies do better financially, they retain more staff, and they can better cultivate brand loyalty. Having a strong workforce with a wide range of talent will always be a strategic imperative, and tourism should be at the forefront. No other sector plays such a crucial role in building bridges between people or spreading openness to new experiences, cultures, languages, or ideas. We have some great examples out there, including from WTTC members. And I want to give a big thank. Is Zena still here? Oh, hi, Zena from Intrepid. Intrepid is actually one of our members, and you heard also from James earlier, and strongly dedicated, as we heard from Zena, to diversity and inclusion, both in their workforce and for their travellers. Sorry if you said this earlier, Zena, but you're offering all women expeditions. They champion women's voices, and in fact, the voices of people of all diversities, and their foundation supports initiatives like the Black Mambas in South Africa that you may have mentioned. I think, did you mention the Black Mambas? Right, I won't describe to everyone what they are, but they are amazing. The Indian Hotels Company has a dedicated scheme for women returning to work after any kind of career break, whether that's having a child, caring for a family member, taking time off for health issues, pursuing education, or just going freelance for a bit. Or as one of my bosses once told me, was we all need to have a duvet day, every now and again. So the important part of that is they let people come back to a range of roles with hours that suit them and with dedicated support and mentorship for the next step. Or Google, where we are today, who offer equity-free funding and product support for women-led tech startups. These efforts are no less important now than they were before the backlash. If anything, a backlash means we should be even more forthright and unapologetic about investing in women, training them, supporting them, and helping them succeed. Creating a travel and tourism sector that is strong, sustainable and welcoming for everyone is not just a great business decision. As we know, it is actually the right thing to do, which is why forums like this are so important, where women are recognised and rewarded for our work, and where even in moments of political upheaval, we don't step back, but we double down on our efforts to create a more inclusive future. Ida Pfeiffer dreamed of travelling her whole life. Her friends and family told her not to do it. To think of a woman's venturing alone without protection of any kind, they argued, was preposterous. In response, she wrote, "I had nothing but my firm, unchanging determination Today, the history books remember Ida as the world's first solo female tourist. And after that trip to Constantinople, she went to the Middle East, she went to Iceland, which I think is where James is just going off to now, Brazil, Syria, Hong Kong and Armenia. She climbed Mount Vesuvius, met tiger hunters in India and dined with the Queen of Tahiti. God, I would have loved to have been there. And on her 50th birthday, she rode a camel through Iran. At age 61, she was still going, this time to Madagascar. By the end of her life, I think she'd circumnavigated the globe twice. So ours too is an age in which women must break boundaries. All we need is a bit of Ida's determination. Today, together, I know we can find some. So thank you so much for listening to me. It's been great. Thank you.